Bienvenidos, soy Anthony Lemón, soy el gerente de Latinoamérica de SAE Professional y Ableton. Y bienvenidos a Escuela SAE. Estoy aquí para practicar mi español. Entonces, estamos en una gira de certificación y también eventos de Ableton. Y el primer lugar que estamos haciendo esto es aquí con ustedes en SAE en México. Estamos en una gira de toda Latinoamérica, pero el primer evento está aquí. Entonces, estoy aquí con el equipo de Ableton de Berlín, de Alemania, Joaquin Jimenez. En un ratito voy a introducir Huston, pero primero quiero dar gracias muy fuerte a Joaquin y su equipo de SAE. Un aplauso fuerte para SAE. Y también un gran aplauso para el equipo de Ableton que viene de Estados Unidos y también de Alemania, un viaje muy largo. Un aplauso para Yukio y Houston. También tenemos invitados especial el equipo de Pro Audio Distribuidora, Arnolfo y Memo y el resto del equipo. Pro Audio es el distribuidor oficial de Ableton y SAE Professional aquí en Pro Audio. Y ellos están a sus órdenes para apoyar el mercado con eventos y publicidad y training y seminarios también. Entonces, un aplauso para Pro Audio, que está con nosotros. Entonces, y también muy importante, todo este show está en vivo. Estamos haciendo un broadcast en vivo por toda Latinoamérica. Entonces, es un evento, estoy muy emocionado por estar aquí con ustedes. Y sin un minuto voy a introducir a Joaquin, invitar a Joaquin, que está el gerente de SAE aquí y está el host del evento. Joaquin, viene al escenario. Un aplauso para Joaquin, por favor.
Thanks, man.
Hola, pues yo soy Joaquin Jimenez, el maestro de aquí del curso de Ableton Live. Pues bienvenidos, gracias a todos los que vinieron, sobre todo los que vinieron fuera de la escuela. Yo quiero hablarles un poco de la escuela. Aquí somos el único centro certificado de Ableton Live en toda Latinoamérica, así que les puedo asegurar que este es el mejor curso que puedan tener de Ableton Live, que el que puedan encontrar. También tenemos cursos relacionados. Tenemos una gran oferta educativa en producción de música electrónica, es un curso de 6 meses, también ingeniería en audio, una carrera completa, muchas otras ofertas que pueden encontrar. Entonces les invito a que visiten nuestra página, es mexico.sae.edu. ¿Sí? Más adelante les puedo poner la dirección aquí en la pantalla, pero bueno, no voy a quitarle más tiempo a nuestro invitado especial. Él no habla español. Me gustaría... la idea de tener una segunda pantalla es hacer una semi-traducción, a menos que todos estén de acuerdo en que hagamos esto en inglés. ¿Les parece? So, everybody's cool that we do this in English? Yes?
All right.
Cool. Right.
I like it. I like it. Yes, Tony will be doing sign language off to your left.
So...
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so we don't need translation. Okay, so no more from me. Houston, thank you for being here.
Oh, is that screen going to be up the whole time, or?
No, I'm going to turn it off right now.
Okay.
So,
wonderful.
Yeah.
So no translation at all.
They are cool with English.
Okay.
Really? Everybody?
Are we ready?
If in case you need, si alguien necesita traducción, pueden levantar la mano y preguntar. ¿Sí? Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. Hello, everybody. My name is Huston Singletary. I work for Ableton. I'm based out of our U.S. office in New York City, and it's great to be in Mexico City showing you and everyone here Ableton Live. So hopefully over the next roughly 2 hours, myself as well as Joaquin are going to show you workflow techniques, production techniques, with Ableton. We're going to talk about some tips and tricks. We're going to work with MIDI. We're also going to do something very unique with our good friend Carlos, our guitar player. We're going to record some live guitar on the fly, and we're going to build up a song in the session view. keeping things moving, so that's going to be a lot of fun. We're also going to look at sound design for picture, how Ableton Live works for applying effects and music to pictures. In this case, we're going to work with a special video clip from the Tron Legacy series, so that's going to be a lot of fun too. And last but not least, we're going to also raffle off a couple of prizes. One of those is going to be some Ableton apparel, nice Ableton shirt, very similar to the one I'm wearing, and also a lucky winner here tonight that's in this room. On our first break, when you come back in the room, we're going to give each of you 2 raffle tickets. The second lucky winner of that raffle is going to win a copy of Ableton Suite 8. How's that? Right? So we want to thank our good friends at Pro Audio, and of course Ableton and our Berlin team for offering that great prize too. So we'll have a few more details on that as we get to our break. So basically the structure of how things are going to work tonight, because obviously there's a lot of things that I can cover, and I want to make sure that all of them make sense. I'm going to speak for about 45 minutes, maybe 50 minutes or so. I'll try to keep an eye on the time. And then we're going to take a really quick break, so don't go far. Take a smoke break, bathroom break, but make sure you come back in. Everybody try to go back to your seats that you were in originally. Then we're going to have our good friend Joaquin come up. He's going to show some very interesting tips and tricks working on some creation with step sequencers and some really unique things that he works with, as well as some of the curriculum that he teaches here at SAE. And then I'm going to close things out with a special treat with some sound design for picture, and then we'll do our Q&A, which hopefully you guys will have a lot of questions. So before I dive into working with some audio and working with Ableton, really quickly, by a show of hands, how many of you are working with Ableton Live right now in your studio? Excellent. That's great. So it's maybe just a hair over half the room. How many of in the room are actually familiar with Live? You know about it. You've seen it. You've seen it on the computer, on the website. So, okay, that's great. That's great. So my job here tonight is to give the regular users, if you will, some of you who are already using it, as well as new users, an overview of how, not just how the program works, but really, hopefully, that you can take some of this information home and dive right in with Live. If you don't currently own a copy of Live, you can go to our website and you can download a fully functional demo, which is a demo and a trial, which is great. So you just go to ableton.com, download it to your Mac or PC, and you can work with, in the same style that I'm working with tonight. You can record tracks, you can work with MIDI, and then if you decide to buy it, you'll actually unlock that version. Does that make sense to you guys? So that's pretty cool. So for you new users, remember some of the things that we're doing tonight. You can, if you don't own Live, Ableton's one of the only and few companies in the world that offers a free demo trial that you can just download right off the website. So, and if you have questions on that, definitely ask one of us. So, let's take a look at Live. One other thing I want to mention is, during the course of the evening, you're going to see me banging around on stuff up here tonight, as well as Joaquin. One of those is one of our pieces called the Ableton, or called the Akai APC40, which is a controller that works exclusively with Ableton Session View. And we're going to get pretty deep into this because this is going to be one of the main controllers that I use to actually launch particular sections of Live, scenes and clips and things like that. And I'm also going to be using this controller just to play some basic MIDI stuff as we work on some MIDI tracks and instruments and things like that. And then last but not least, we're going to use this Akai MPK Mini to actually do some controlling of some very special features in Live. And I'm going to ask one of you members in the audience to come up here and help me with this, and that's why we've got this on an extra long MIDI cable, so don't be scared. Anybody? So that's going to be fun. So those are the main things. I just want to make it pretty clear what we're using here, and that's about it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into Live, and let's make some music, and let's make some tracks, and hopefully we'll have some fun for the next 45 minutes or so. So here we go. So the view that you see here in front of you, as far as a workstation sequencer in Ableton Live, this is called the session view. And there's 2 views in Live. And it's very important to remember that those 2 exist in the fact that the session view works as a creation performance type tool, and the fact that we can work with audio and MIDI, but we have the ability to mix and match different pieces of audio and MIDI in any way that we want, like a sketchpad. So we can launch and we can stop and we can move things around very elegantly in this view. And for you new users, this might be a little confusing at first, but we're going to dive into this pretty heavily. If I hit my tab key, I go to what's called the arrangement view. And this is a view that everyone in this room is probably familiar with. If you're sitting here tonight, you've probably got experience with a digital audio workstation, right? You know, whichever brand that is, that's okay, because you're used to working from left to right. This is called a linear workflow. So when you drop tracks in, you know, you bring them in from zero and you just work down the timeline, track after track, and you stop and you overdub, and that's great. And this is called the arrangement view, and it's always there for you to use. The arrangement view is part of Live. It's built in, that linear workflow. So you really have the best of both worlds. You have the session view and the arrangement view, and this is great. And I'm going to show you some really unique ways how we can get these performance ideas and launching clips and things like that really elegantly from session view into arrangement view. So we're going to do that in just a second. So let's talk about the session view, and let's talk about how we work with audio and MIDI. So I'm going to go to what's called the Live browser, which is over here on the left. And it's part of Live. It's built in. And what happens is when I click on this triangle button, I open up the Live browser, and we've got several buttons over here to the left. And this allows me to look at Ableton's audio effects and instruments and MIDI effects in this first window. The second window allows me to look at my audio units and VSTs. How many of you guys are using VSTs in your workflow? Yeah, so a lot of hands there. So, and now we go down to what's called the file browsers, and these are really important because the file browser allows me to click on one of three, and I'm basically mirroring and basically scrolling through my hard drive. So now I'm just playing, whether it's MP3s, WAV files, whatever the case may be. They could be stems from one of my other, Logic, Pro Tools. I'm actually can audition those just by scrolling through those, just like this. So you see how quickly Ableton is accessing these sounds, which is pretty cool, right? So what I'm going to do is go back up to this first one. I call this, I like the sound of that. It's a Studio Kit Rock Groove. And I think all you guys can see down here, we've got a little display window that's actually scrubbing along, playing along and auditioning just in the browser. So we're listening to what's on my hard drive. And this could be an external hard drive. It could be any drive that we want to select. But I want to get it out of the browser now since I've decided that I like it. And I want to put that right into track 1 on clip slot 1. So it mutes the browser and immediately turns what's called an audio clip. I'm going to close the browser. It turns this what's called a clip slot, these little rectangles that you see here. They're like containers, and they're just waiting for audio or MIDI to just be put right inside. And once I do that, that audio clip slot turns into an audio clip. And I have an activator button, which allows me... Now, what's the first thing that we notice as soon as I played that? What did your ears tell you? It's quicker, right. If I turn the metronome on up here in the upper left, you'll notice that I'm at 110 BPM. So when we were playing that track, it was obviously slower. Maybe it was hovering like at 85 or 90 or something. Ableton immediately locked that to tempo. It locked it to its transport, locked it to 100 BPM. And watch what happens as I speed up Live. We get up to 130, 140. So we can really start manipulating very quickly, very elegantly, really slowing things down. So off the bat, a lot of you seasoned users in the digital audio workstation world are thinking, well, that's not, that's not really that new. That's cool, but, that's not something that's, I'm probably already doing that possibly. Well, what's really interesting, what is cool, is now that I'm synced up to my metronome, in this case 110 BPM, I can go back to my browser and I can go down and maybe take a guitar track and my browser is now automatically synced to that first clip in the session view. So now not only am I synced up in my session view to my metronome or my tempo, but now my browser is as well, which is very cool. So now I can scroll through. And what is that doing? That's giving me inspiration. Like just that clip, that's just that piece of audio right there just give me, it's like, yeah, a little Lenny Kravitz kind of vibe or something, or maybe I'll do something different. Play little funk groove, little disco kind of thing. So let's go back to this kind of driving kind of funk groove. I'm going to pull that into track 2. Fire it off. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, it's a little bit louder. That's because I've got it on a channel strip with its own meter section. So I'll just bring the volume down, or I can go to my APC 40. You guys see this? So I'm just going to control my volume here. You can see I'm adjusting the automation on the faders themselves. So I got a pretty cool blend. Now, let's go back over to the browser and go look at some bass loops. Because I got plenty to work with here. Here we go. Again, the browser's synced up. So I'm going to drag this in. Now we got 3 clip slots, left to right, track 1, track 2, track 3. I'm going to count myself in. 1, 2, and here comes the bass. Right, so we're just starting to build things up a little bit. It's kind of cool. So I'm going to stop the transport. I have a question for you. You noticed, I'm sure you have, in the last 2 or 3 minutes while I've been doing this, that everything has been syncing up right on the downbeat. So it's one of 2 things. It's either I'm incredibly awesome with perfect sync, which I'm not, or Ableton's got a feature that's allowing all these clips, including the information in the browser, to sync up on that downbeat. And where that is up right up here at the top, and it's called Global Quantize. And this Global Quantize button gives me a choice to actually quantize my start time, whether it's directly activating a clip, or it's activating my spacebar, or maybe the APC40 launching some buttons, which we're going to look at in detail in a second. So if I put it on a bar, I could do really interesting things. Like I could start with, I don't know, the second clip, not even the drums. Then I'll bring the drums in. You see, it'll flash, give me a little countdown right before I start it, and then I can bring in the bass. Kind of cool. And all this happens in real time. What if I put it back and go down to something like 16th note? Watch what happens now. I'll start with a guitar. Then I'm going to go over here to my APC40, and I can do things quicker now. It's kind of cool. Now, what did I do over here on the right side? That was a really interesting way to say, you know what? I'd actually like to launch all 3 of these at the same time. I want to bring the drums in and the bass. Well, I don't necessarily have a magic mouse that's got 3 cursors, right? That's not going to work. So what Ableton does is it gives you this really unique way to launch an entire row of clips, and it's called the scene. And the scene is over here on the far right, and it's got its own activator clip, so I can do things like this. It's pretty cool. So it can line a whole row up. Why is that an advantage? Well, watch what happens when I duplicate a couple of these clips underneath each other to different scenes. I'm going to duplicate the drums 3 times. I'm going to duplicate the guitar once. And I'm also going to copy this bass down to the 4th clip slot just by itself. So watch what happens when I work with the scenes now. Now I'm going to go to scene 2. Put my global quantize back on a bar so I can line things up better. I told you my sync wasn't that good. Now I'm going to go just to the bass, scene 4. Back to scene 1. Right? So what am I doing? I'm actually treating Ableton in a way like a playable instrument, if you really think of it. Yes, we know it doesn't have strings or keys or piano, drum heads, but I'm actually performing now just by saying, hey, time to bring the guitar in, the bass, here we go. And then now I want to go to the bass breakdown just by itself. Drums, back to the hook. See how quickly that happened? Now I ask you this question. That actual chain of commands that I just did, who can remember exactly what that was? It's kind of like, most of you can get pretty close. It's like, yeah, you did the bass, you did the drums, then the chorus, and I think you did the bass. I can't quite remember. What was it? Well, there's a really cool feature in Live called the global record. And the global record, how many of you work with a master record button? You arm the master record button, and then you go track by track in your current DAW, or even in Ableton, and then you record track by track, all derived around this master record button up here at the top. Well, in Ableton, in the session view, the record button actually acts as what's called a global record button, meaning that everything that I do in the session view is going to be recorded directly into the arrangement view. And that's everything. That's automation, that's clip launching, that's stopping, that's dragging an actual live audio effect in, that's launching scenes. And how does that work? Let's do that right now. So I'm going to turn on global record. For an APC40, I've got a button right here, which is pretty cool, or I can just click on it with my mouse. And so now I'm just waiting. What am I going to do? Well, it's maybe what we did before. Bass. Coming right here on drums. And And now let's go to the hook for just 2 bars only. And then back to just the drums. Guitar. Now I'm going to do this. While it's recording, I'm going to go to the device browser. I'm going to open up Ableton's audio effects, and I'm going to drag an auto filter right on top of the guitar track. So here's our audio effect. I'm going to drag it right over to track 2. And now I'm going to go down with my mouse. And I'm just going to maybe do some low-pass filter. Or, what's kind of cool is I can actually do it with APC40. A little wah-wah. It's really just a filter stomp box, but pretty cool. And go back to the first scene. Get the bass back in there. Now I hit tab. Look what happens in the arrangement view. Everything that I just did has been recorded, right? Pretty cool, huh? It goes from left to right, all the way from the beginning. So now when I go back to the top, I have an exact performance and an exact recording. There's that bass. Here goes my drums. And I think, if I remember right, I brought in an audio effect. Well, let's go over here to our meter section. And let's go ahead and open up on our guitar track. There we go. There's our auto filter. What is this information in here? Who can tell me what this information right here is? Automation, exactly. Let me get my fat head out of the way here. So yeah, all this red information was all that information I did with the low pass filter, and then eventually I got into some resonance as well, frequency. So, but let's fast forward up, and now watch what happens. If you guys can see down here in the device view, that single auto filter. So it's going to give me a nice visual representation, which is cool. So it's like a double bonus. Not only am I seeing what's going on in the actual track view, I'm actually seeing, so there's my wah-wah section, which I kind of like that. So maybe I just want to loop that a couple of times. So since I'm in a linear view, I can do that. I can just duplicate that 2 or 3 times. Kind of cool. So, and what's nice too, again, we're working in this linear fashion, in this linear workflow from left to right. So as a producer and a mixer, like a lot of you are in your studio, this is a view that a lot of you are already familiar with. So if I want to go back just a little bit and do a little production, grab a couple of sections here. Right, go in and just maybe take out a section of drums, like a little break. Bring the snare in, extend a piece out over here. Maybe it's time to record some vocals, so I can make a new recordable audio track, set up a mic. We're going to show that in a second with our friend Carlos when we actually do guitar. So let's do a quick review of how we just built this very simple track inside Live. We started with just a real basic drum groove on clip slot 1. Then we brought from our browser, our live browser, right over here, and then we brought in some bass, and then we brought in some guitar, and we just started building up these clips, and as a row started growing from left to right, we started using scenes, switching back and forth, getting those different workflow ideas, and then we eventually used the global record to record those ideas directly into the arrangement view, along with effects. I can stop a track, I can delete a function I just did, I can add, anything that I want to do. So the sky's the limit when I hit global record. And just remember, in the arrangement view, the record button actually is a master record button, because that's when I would go over here to the right and I would arm a couple of tracks for my drummer and my bass player, or whatever, I want to record, live mic, MIDI. But in the session view, a very important thing to remember is, it's not a master record button. It's a global record button. And I know I keep emphasizing that, but it's really important to remember, especially for you new users. And hopefully that last few minutes showed you the importance and the really uniqueness of how the live browser works as well. If I wanted to bring another bass part in, I could just drag it in. And look where I dragged it. I didn't actually bring it to my bass track. I actually brought it over here to my drum track. Point being is I can mix and match multiple clips on one track. Now, I can only play one clip at a time per track, but I can certainly mix and match them. And that includes length as well. So, I could have my drum clip playing on track 1 here. I can extend this out so you can see it a little better. But now I could go to bass. Now watch what happens when I clip the clip slot for the bass guitar. Let's go ahead and name it too, actually. Bass guitar. Now watch what happens to the first clip slot as soon as I play the bass. Just mutes it, closes it down. Out of business. Totally quiet. Back to the bass. But we can do some other interesting things too. I'm going to launch the bass again. I'm going to make a new audio track. So I go to my Create menu, Insert Audio Track. I'm actually going to drag a drum track all the way over here. See what's going on? So I'm really flexible. So hopefully that's giving you a really kind of cool idea of just how flexible you can get with these clips. You know, you don't even have to stop the transport. There's a lot you can do. The whole idea being that you've got this creative workflow going, hopefully. You know, as a singer-songwriter, you may be a singer-songwriter, you may be a producer of a certain genre of music, you're a guitar player. So everybody's got their own way of getting into that groove and into that moment. And the session view is wonderful for that. The linear view, that's always going to be there for you. The linear view, the arrangement view, you're always going to have that. So if you're accustomed to starting to work in this kind of view, it's there. It's like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and arm track 1, and I'm going to start at bar 2, and I'm going to record 4 bars of my guitar. I'm going to stop, and now I'm going to go to my second track, put my bass on. You can work that way. It's a little bit slower, but you can certainly work that way. So as an audio recorder, which we're going to talk about in a minute, it works exactly the same. In this case, I'm just launching clips, some pre-recorded stuff. But, you know, any questions on the session view, the browser, the scenes, the clips? It's a no? Okay. Wait, see?
So the record button has a different name in each view?
Yes, the master record button? Yes, so the question is the record button, this one that turns red up here, is this significant in 2 different ways? As I explained it. So, right? Yeah, and so in this view, it's a global record, meaning that it's not just arming tracks and recording audio, which we're going to do in just a second with Carlos. It means it's going to record every clip launch, every audio effect I bring in real time, every deletion that I make. I may take out a whole scene. I may add some blank scenes. It's going to remember all that. So when I do the reveal, if you will, and I hit that tab key, I'm going to see all of that unfolding. Then the great thing is I can leave the session view, and I can go over to the arrangement view, put my producer hat on, my mixer hat on, and start doing all those techniques that you're used to doing as a linear producer, mixer, engineer, tracking, whatever the case may be. So there's also some very unique ways that both of these views are also used in the world of music. You know, the session view is used on countless big tours now, and also from small tours as well. Singer-songwriters, local musicians like to use this when they're on stage and they're playing guitar and they have some backing tracks, and they can go through the scenes with the APC or whatever, do a change. But there are some artists that like to just use the linear view the same way, and they can lay out a whole section of songs just like you would in any other digital audio workstation, you know, section and chunk by chunk and section by section. So some pretty cool, unique ways to work there. So let's. I want to show you guys something kind of cool. I'm going to start with a new set. I want to actually show you how Live works with its time correction, and it's what's called warping. And warping is the way that Ableton lines up and fixes timing to tempo. So no matter what tempo it may be. So some of this bass stuff would actually probably be a really good example. So let's go ahead. Let me just take the bass by it. No, actually, you know what I want to do? I'm going to go and actually open up a set and actually start it in arrange view. I call it warping a live drum track. And this is pretty interesting. And we've probably all been in this situation at some point or the other. And not to pick on drummers by any means, because I'm a former drummer. But here's an example of a drummer that's tracked in a linear view, but he's not quite in the groove. He's still in the band, because he's got the rehearsal space and the van, but his band members don't quite want to tell him that, you know, dude, seriously, you know. So it's kind of like, he's kind of got chops, but there's just something's not right with the timing. Yeah, something's not right, especially, not just a metronome, but especially when I bring it into other musicians. The band's tight. Take those drums out. Everything's cool. Bring those drums in. It's like, oh, what's going on? So let's do this. For the first time tonight, let's actually take a look at what's going on inside of a clip. Right now we've just looked at clips as just colored clip slots, of audio, green, blue, red, that kind of stuff, in both views, actually. So if I double-click on a clip, down below, we've got what's called the clip view. And as you can imagine, especially for you live users that have already been using Ableton, there's a lot of information that's going on inside this view down here. Mainly, one of the cool things is Ableton can just autocorrect and fix timing on the fly. It can actually quantize audio just like you quantize MIDI. How many of you work with MIDI and use quantization in your MIDI production? 16th note, 8th note, triplet, to fix little things, or maybe you just have it on the whole time like I do, where it just automatically kind of makes everything line up. Well, Ableton does that as well. Check this out. I'm going to go ahead and... There's our stinky drummer, man. This is not right. This is not allowable by law. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the track in the clip view, and I'm going to call up a menu, the quantize menu, and I've got it set to 16th. And here we go. Watch what happens to the information in the clip view. And when I say watch, that's really a moot point because it's so fast you don't even see it happen. That's what's really cool about live. I can actually undo it. But what was one of the other interesting things that happened? It actually did it while I was playing, which is pretty awesome. I mean, there's not another program out there that can do it really that quick. Not that that's, the main thing there, but it's cool. So we'll play it again. Quantize. I highlight the track. Here we go. I can do that with bass. I can, whatever I want to do. The other cool thing about working with MIDI is, let's say this guitar track, for example. Watch what happens when I double-click on the acoustic guitar clip. Changes the waveform in the clip view. So now we see the guitar. I've got it soloed out, just in a traditional mixer sense. Now, if you look really closely, I've got over here, I have a loop brace on both sides. Where my cursor is on this side, I can shorten things up. Let me turn a loop on first. Sorry about that. Here we go. And I could scroll. I could take that loop. Which is pretty cool. So I'm doing that in real time. So it gives me a nice way to find sections of a song, a clip. It also shows you how quickly Ableton can scrub around and find things. And this is also applicable inside the session view. So if I go to, let's do this, go to Pop Rock Demo, same song, but in the session view, right? So I can play these scenes. Remember, we've got these rows from left to right. So there's my little keyboard loop. I can do some of the volume here. Go to the next scene. Sounds like we got an auto filter on one of the guitar tracks. Somewhere. Next scene. So what's cool is, if I have a guitar track, for example, like this acoustic guitar, I can actually work on different sections of that song or of that clip. So let's leave the drums in there, and we'll leave the percussion in there. And we're going to go to this particular clip right here, and this is the only one that I want to work with, acoustic guitar. So there it is. Maybe I just want to work on this. Bam, bam. Right? Then we bring everything else in. So I've established kind of a simple little Jack Johnson kind of whatever thing going on there. But check this out. I can use the same clip by duplicating it. I can go down and say, you know what? There's that second clip, but I actually want to bring the loop, the start time back here, and actually play the first two bars with the same clip. And I want to go to my little, right? You guys see what's going on with APC, right? So the point there is you can take a single clip that may be 4 bars or 16 bars or a whole stem or whatever, or a whole track, 124 bars, and you can actually duplicate that clip as many times as you want. You have unlimited clip slots, unlimited tracks, and then each one of those clips can have its own location. And that's the way a lot of remixes are born. A lot of remixes are created in live. So that's a look at how we can autocorrect, on the fly. Something is really out as our terrible drummer friend. The other thing that's kind of interesting is I can also move the audio specifically. So if I solo out these drums here, we got real quiet all of a sudden. That's fine now. So here's a little drum and the clap right there. If I zoom in, I could take my magnifier tool and my clip view down here, and I can zoom in. You can see there's the transient and the waveform. And you see this little white triangle right here. That's just called a transient marker. Transient is just that peak, if you will, in that waveform. So what in this case is drums and snares and hats. So we're going to see those, pretty easily. When you're into more involved music, things start to get a little more diluted. But at the end of the day, it's a transient. And so that's just kind of a guide. Ableton saying, which is new in version 8, it's saying, hey, this is a really good place to actually double-click and put what's called a warp marker. Okay? And so that yellow pin is called a warp marker. And what's great about this is I can actually stretch the audio to the timeline. But you notice that when I'm doing this now, what else am I stretching? Stretching the whole track. It's not really what I want to do. I just want to make the snare just behind just a little bit. So I just create another warp marker here and another warp marker here, and now it creates a boundary, right? So now I can put that snare just a little bit behind, maybe a little further. So just to show you how elastic Ableton can be with its warping. How many of you work with warping tracks right now? That's awesome, man. I love it. So think about I'm looking at this from a snare drum perspective. Look at it from the perspective of stretching, taking two tracks that are 100 BPM and you want to put those up to 128. Ableton does that very efficiently, and I know a lot of you guys, do that kind of stuff. So does anyone have questions on warping? That's a lot of hands, man. That's awesome. So I love it. So let's go, dig in just a little bit further and talk about that. If I've got a couple of files, I don't know why we're just really quiet here. So I'm just going to bring an entire track in, okay? And I'm going to fire that off. And I bet you it's going to play slower, right? Because we're at 110. So I'm going to type in 128. And I'm going to go audition another track. Put this one in. It sounds like there might be a little gap at the beginning of that, but we'll see. Let's take a look at it. Show you how quickly we can line things up here. So I got track 1, clip 1 playing, track 2. Let's go take a look at this. We can solo that track out for just a second. Right? So maybe I just want to take this section right here. If I highlight my loop brace, I can take my arrow key and just find a section that I like. Now I can take my crossfader, assign crossfader A and B, so I've got that. You guys see that right there? But let's get back to the tempo. Ableton's using its warping to actually work with adjusting, slowing things down, speeding things up. And there's a good bet that a lot of you guys in the room, I wanted to show this for you new users, but all of you that raise your hands, how many of you are, ones that raise your hand, are using this sort of in the capacity of electronic music or DJing and remixing? Fewer hands went up, so I'm curious, what are some of the ways that some of you other cats are using warping? To do what? Are you fixing things? Are you matching different kinds of tracks? Anybody? Right? Uh-huh. Yeah, and stretch it. Right? That's great. So yeah, so it can be used, to be quite honest, the time stretching and the warping, the DJ community was very, very, highly responsible for really pushing Ableton in the early part of the decade. and as it's progressed into a heavier DAW with more features, it started to expand into other genres. So, using it as a remix tool is incredibly powerful. And being able to take sections. I wanted to point out, just really quickly, let me close this window. If I launch this first clip, we'll just stick with this one for now. The power, I want to show this especially for you new users. I have one clip. It's obviously very long. I can turn my loop on, which we've been talking about during the whole course of this evening. I turn loop on, and I zoom in a little bit. Very short loop there. I'm going to make it, 5 bars. Sounds good. All right, now watch what happens. In real time, I'll just duplicate the clip. But before I even play the second clip, I'm actually going to take my loop brace. I'm just going to move it down a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. I'm going to duplicate it again. Not going to play the third one yet. I'm actually going to go to the third one. I'll play it. Now let's see if I can move it to where Ableton will actually be smart enough to realize that I'm moving my loop brace, so it'll actually calculate the distance. So it actually doesn't skip a beat, even though I'm up here trying to frantically try to get to that next point. So as soon as I let go, it's going to remember those parts. And this is what I like doing. Actually, if I come up with that idea, maybe that third one with a more melodic character to it, I actually just drag that to a new audio track, and then I'll just kind of freak that track out a little bit. Put some delay on there. Maybe go over to my audio effects. Take my auto filter. Turn the envelope on. Bring the LFO up. Maybe turn the high pass on. Launch that. Get a little blend there. Maybe take the high pass just for a second. I'm going to add some bottom end to this first track. Now, I like that groove. That's like 3 components. As a matter of fact, let's add another component with MIDI. So I'm going to show you how we can capture all that and just make one simple clip. Let's say we're co-producing. We're like a tandem production team. But you're halfway across the country, and I'm working on this groove. You're working on some vocal stuff and on the same song, but differently. And I'm creating this groove, and I want to send that to you. But you don't need the whole set. You don't need all these clips and this MIDI that I'm getting ready to play. So check this out. I'm going to show you how we can do some really interesting stuff. So I'm going to say, let's add some kick drums. So I'm going to pull a drum rack out of our MIDI instruments, or out of our instrument device browser, and load that in. And now you can see that we've got the drum rack in Ableton. And the drum rack sounds like we got a compressor on the speakers, huh? So I'm going to thicken that up. So I kind of like that kick drum, so I'm going to add it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch myself in. When I arm the MIDI track, notice that those clip slots turn from stop clip buttons to circular record buttons. So we got another record button to work with. So I'll punch myself in. 3, 4. Punch out. Double click it. See what's going on there. There it is. Kind of like that. Now I want to add maybe a completely different drum. I want to add a drum machine track. So I'm going to go down and grab this little 909. Another drum rack preset. It's an Ableton Suite 8. Okay, there's 3 versions of Live Intro, Live 8, Suite 8. Suite 8 gives you the same interface, all the features of Live 8, just more instruments, including these really killer drum machine sounds. Right? So I kind of like that pattern. This time, instead of trying to catch myself and punch in and out, either with the APC or the trackpad, a MIDI clip as opposed to an audio clip, I can double click it and give myself an instant 1-bar template. So now I can punch myself in. Missed that one, so that's okay. We're looping around. So there's a little side stick going on, but I don't really like the side stick. So now that I've recorded it, let's just take the whole side stick out. Take that one out. I like the... Maybe I'll move this one here. Or... It's kind of cool. Maybe add a little velocity to those. So basically just working in that MIDI note editor. So now I like this sound. I think it's kind of cool. Maybe add some delay to that side stick. All right. So in real time, check this out. I'm going to make a brand new audio track. And I'm going to go to my I.O. section. I've got these handy little buttons on the right side over here, if you can see them. I have I.O., meter, sends, returns. So I can hit those handy buttons to open up my I.O. section. And on this new audio track, I'm going to go to Audio From and select Resample. So now, I'm actually able to go in and actually record all those tracks in one pass, all into one clip slot, just like this. And I'll actually use the APC for this. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to play one more time. You know, I get to do something in real time if I wanted to. I'll punch out. And now I'll take each one of these tracks out. What do we have right there? We got that whole blend. And you notice I never stop the transport, which is pretty cool. So now I can take this clip. I can name this New Groove. Okay? And I can send it to my friend, my producer here. What's your name? Victor is in... halfway across the world, he's in Moscow, right? I can say, hey man, I got the clip you wanted. This way you can finish the track, we can get paid, you can put it in there against all the other awesome tracks that you've done, and there it is. The other thing that's kind of cool is, I have this track this clip, it's called New Groove. I can actually go back to the browser that we worked with earlier, where I was actually auditioning and bringing bass and guitar. Check this out. I can actually go to this Deep House file, and I can actually drag that in to that folder. I can create a new folder too if I wanted to. And now, let's go to a brand new set. In other words, let's create the scenario of someone I'm sending this clip to. Or maybe we're coming back to the session 2 weeks later. And I go to my browser. I go to New Groove. Drag it in. Take it back up to 128. There we go. So now I can go in and I can work with all my other tracks. I can bring in, whatever the case may be, just other. Fire this one off. If I want to go take a MIDI instrument, I can go grab my electric piano, whatever I want to work with. Bring that in on this track. I can add some effects. Punch in. Punch out. I just wanted to record a quick little riff. That's MIDI. That could be another situation where, okay, I've got all my MIDI instruments inside Live, and I like them, they're cool, I can work with all my different tracks, but at the end of the day, if I want to come back and mix, ideally, and I'm sure a lot of you can agree, I actually want just audio tracks. 24, 32, whatever size mix that you're working on. It's great you're just dealing with audio, so that way you don't have to load the MIDI tracks, you don't have to worry about what was there, was it a VST, was it one of the Live's instruments. So I can actually turn this MIDI instrument into audio really, really quickly. And what I do is I freeze the track, okay, and that's going to contain everything. Let's back up a step. Maybe I've got an effect in there. So one of the things I like doing is just, working with effects. I'll take an auto pan. Is that moving around for you guys a little bit? Right? And then maybe taking a chorus, another device that you can see everything is just lining up in the device view. I got the MIDI device, followed by an audio effect from Ableton, another live device audio effect from Ableton, and then maybe I'll want to put a phaser sort of effect on there. So I'll take our frequency shifter and give us a nice kind of 70s vibe. It's got that delay in there, and that's kind of cool. So, point being, I'm going to select the whole track, I'm going to freeze it, and now not only is it freezing that performance I played, my little Chick Corea rip-off Herbie Hancock thing, but it's also freezing the electric piano parameters that are making the sound, as well as auto pan, chorus, and the frequency shifter, and the length of the loop, which is called, it's clip properties. So, check this out. I'm going to make a brand new audio track to the right. Okay, keep your eyes open, because here we go. Boom, there it is. Right? It's like some of you are like, what, dude, what did you just do, and why did that happen so fast? I have no idea what happened. Let's undo that, or go back to the freeze track. Ableton takes that information that's frozen on that frozen MIDI track, converts it to audio that quickly. And this is great, because now I can go in, and not only do I have an audio performance, but I have the ability to go up to my my file menu, and I can actually export that as a singular track. See what we have there? There's my my 5 audio track. I can send different tracks or whatever. The cool thing is I can go back in now, and I can do things like, if I need to, I can stretch the audio, whatever. And then one other thing that I can do as well is I can just copy drag too. So I've always got that instance, of the piano. Sometimes you don't want to lose that MIDI track. And last but not least, if that wasn't enough, I can just do what's called flatten. And flatten just immediately takes the whole MIDI track, frozen, everything, turns it into the audio, and you're done. So that it actually turned audio, not just the electric piano, but the effects as well. So pretty cool. So you guys should definitely check that out. Just work with any MIDI instrument that you want, and convert that to audio, so you can get to mixing and get busy with that. Yeah.
If you have several clips, it also makes the rendering of the several clips that you have on that channel.
Sure. Yeah, that's actually a great question. So let's say that I've got, different performances. I'll just do it. It's always easier just to put your cap to your water somewhere. So, okay, I'm going to arm the track. Here we go. And I'm going to arm the next clip slot. Use the quantize, global quantize. So I'll do a little Gatos thing. Where it is. Oh, we turned it to audio. So let's just keep undoing. Ableton's got unlimited undos. How about that, right? So now I'm going to arm the track. Here we go. So I'm going to bring that part in. Got a little riff. Go to the next clip slot, just like we did earlier. Right? So we punched out there. And let's say that I've got not just that track, but I've got several all lined up together. All I've got to do is freeze that track. The question was, can you freeze multiple clips in a row? Oh. Mm-hmm.
It makes all the clips render to audio.
Yes. Just like that. Same thing. Dragging them over would do the same thing. So yeah, so multiple clip flattening or converting to audio. So pretty cool. So here's another thing. Since we're doing some conversion, some neat little tips and tricks, I want to show you one more thing. We've got our... let me get something that's kind of melodic here. Okay, that's cool. So we'll take that. I'm going to take out some of these audio tracks, keep things... Well, no, I'll leave them in there. So I'm going to make a let's just focus on this track right here, this drum track. I'll actually enlarge it so you can see it. Now this pattern, electro, housey kind of thing going on, that's cool. What I like about it maybe is the fact that there's that kind of brittle, buzzy hat sound, and I like the kick and the snare, but I'd like to have them separately. Well, if I look at the waveform and the clip view, that's, I don't know. It'd be impossible to really... I certainly can't play it, but trying to separate that stuff's kind of, maybe kind of hard to do. But with Ableton, it's actually really easy, because all I've got to do is right-click on the clip itself, and I do what's called slice to new MIDI track. And Ableton is going to give me a handy little menu here, and you can see the calculations that it does. It says the length, 8 beats long. If I break 8 beats into quarter notes, it's going to give me 8 slices. Okay? I'm going to use the built-in preset. And then what it does is it converts audio to MIDI actually in a drum rack, so I can do this. Watch what happens. Moves it to the right. There it is. Actually see it as MIDI clips, and I can actually play it. You know, and I could probably, with what I'd want to do there is I want to take it a little tighter so I can get that hat in there. So we'll just undo that and do the same thing again. This works really great for acapellas as well, things like that. Oh, I'd quarter note. That was pretty narrow. So here we go. So now I've got this groove that was always playing in this pattern. But now I can go over to my new section. It's got velocity, so all these are individuals now. Maybe I just like whatever. So slice audio to MIDI, and then also converting audio back to or converting MIDI to audio. So there's two functionalities there that are pretty cool. So how many of you guys would like to see actually recording audio with guitar? That would be cool. So where's Carlos? And anybody have any questions while he's kind of getting set up? Certainly a million things that we can talk about here. So, Carlos Ayala. So I called about a week ago when Joaquin and I were discussing sort of how we were going to set things up and work. And I asked him if he had someone that worked at the school, or if he had a contact that played guitar that could actually sit in with me and work with me to basically produce a track and create a track inside the session view of live. Now, certainly there's ways to have a jam session and record in a linear sort of sense in that workflow, and it's cool. You can record 8 bars and stop, go back to the beginning, arm the second track, do a stack track, stop, go back, add the drums. Well, what we're going to do is do it in the session view and never stop the transport. Hopefully, we won't stop the transport. And we'll show you how quickly we can just build some random ideas. And we've got a couple of things, little melodies and things that we talked about earlier. But the whole idea here is to just get creative on the spot, get good quality parts into the session view, and then get in there and really start to kind of manipulate an actual arrangement, from these ideas. But there's a couple of things we need to do. And a lot of you who are already recording, how many students at SAE do we have here? Okay, so I know you guys are studying production, recording workflow paths, and how to work with compressors and large format consoles. So one of the things that we need to do is actually set this track, one of these tracks up. Technique is this is set up as an auxiliary input. So we have our processed guitar input sound. So we're going to use this little Apogee Duet 1. It's just our simple interface. And if we go to Live Preferences, which on a Mac is under the Live menu, and on a PC it's under Options, and I go to Live Preferences, and I open it up, and I see a tab window here. So just really quickly, we'll get done with the boring stuff here. You can see Audio Input Device. I got some selections. With a Mac, it's great. I got some built-in sound card characteristics I can use. But in this case, I want to use the Apogee 1, and I'm already using it on my output, obviously, going back to the guys in the back. So we've got that set up. And if it sounds like he's kind of tuning up, you can see I've got some activity going on in input number 1, and I'm going to set that up to input. Right? So we got a little bit of a sound there. It's kind of cool. Maybe, just a little more volume. And we'll check our latency. We're sitting pretty good at just 0.28 milliseconds, which is pretty narrow. It's kind of cool. Now, one thing we can do just before we get started is I could actually, a clean sounds great. It's not a problem at all. But it'd be nice to kind of get a little preampy, maybe a little amp cabinet kind of sound in there. So we have a couple of choices. We could go and call up an audio effect like a compressor. Stick that on there. So we can get a little bit of a fuller sound. So I can bring that threshold down. Bring our ratio up just a little bit. It's kind of cool. Maybe add, I don't know, we can add an effect. I don't know if I really want to use any because that guitar actually sounds really good at the moment. As well as the sound in here, I think, is pretty good. So there we go. We'll just give a little bump. Cool. So maybe play a couple ideas there, or just a pattern. Okay, so here's the tempo. So I'm going to turn the metronome on. I'm going to tap it. Speed it up just a little bit. Sounds like 115. So let's get some drums, and then we'll get this party started, shall we? All right, so let's find something kind of thick and nasty here. Here we go. I just love this groove, so I'm going to put this one in. I want to actually give that some juice. I want to beef it up a little bit, so we'll take Live's audio effect device compressor, which sounds really good. Go ahead and smash that down just a little bit. Put a little limiter on the back side of that. Nice transparent limiter that Ableton has built into its audio effects library. And last but not least, we need a little bottom end there. Let's drag this into our device view. It's kind of cool. Give a little thump on the bottom. And what's happening over here, he's already got a groove, and that's pretty cool. So let's move our drums over here. Let's get rid of these MIDI tracks. Now, I've already started the transport, so the whole idea is let's not stop the transport at all. Let's go ahead and arm a track. Let's take our input. For all you SAE students, you know what I'm talking about. We're going to take our input and route it from what we'll call auxiliary 1. You're doing an awesome job, man. How's that for like internal rhythm going on over there with Carlos? So I'm going to go to my audio from the Ableton's I/O menu, go from auxiliary in, going to arm my track. Here we go. I'm going to put my output of my aux track to sends in case I want to send it to a cue box. Maybe I've got separate band members and a different vocal booths and things like that. So now we're just totally hearing his guitar playing the drums. Just like earlier, record enable. The clip slots have the record. 1, 2, 3, here we go. Punch out. What do we have when we double click? You know what? Let's just do this. Let's stack that. Let's just do a stack track. So again, I don't have to stop. Go to my next track. Go to audio input from auxiliary in. Arm that. He's going to play along. So we got a new idea. That's cool. So we're just going to bring some delay. Right. So I'm just bringing the send up on this track 3. Okay, here we go. I'm going to record it. 2, 3, 4. This time I'm going to punch out on the APC. I'm going to let it cycle through one more time. Okay, here we go. I'm going to punch out. I can punch out ahead of the bar. Awesome, man. So now I'm going to control a little volume. Let's go ahead and add some bass. I'll add a synth bass over here. So I'm going to make a MIDI track. That's under the Create menu. Insert MIDI track. And I'm going to go back over here to our device browser. Go to Instruments. And we'll go to Instrument Racks. And hopefully if we have time, we're going to talk a little bit about Instrument Racks too. So I'm going to take, actually we'll just go to a regular analog bass. Go to synth bass. There we go. Drag that on. All right, cool. I got my sound. So I'm going to do something real basic. Here we go. Punch in. Punch out. That's cool. You want to do a change? Maybe a change section, do something different. I'm going to copy the drums. There's a guitar solo. There's my studio kit. So we've got here, let's go ahead and name the tracks. Guitar 1. Hit the tab key, by the way. That immediately takes us over to the next track. Rhythm guitar, tab key, drums, and my weird bass line. So now I'm going to go back in. I'm going to duplicate the drums by hitting duplicate. Let's do it a couple of times. You never know. We might make up something else. So I'm going to use these drums as a guide. One by one, I'm going to mute, going to stop. So he's playing. So now, okay, cool. A little legato thing. Watch this. Hit the scene. Now we're in a whole different scene, a whole different clip. Cool, a little turnaround. I'll punch out. Here we go. I'm going to go to another track. Maybe our little rhythm ambient lead. I guess I should call that lead. So that's playing back, out of sight, out of mind. So maybe something, just do your thing, man, like a little lead line. actually add a custom audio effect from a guitar perspective. So I'm going to go to Audio Effects rack, go to Guitars. Here we go. Let's bring this in. Something else. Maybe go to our clean sound. See, we got a lot of choices built into the live library. So I'll grab this one. Cool, it's a little spring box there, a little spring delay. And I'm going to grab it without him even having to worry about it. Here we go. I can double click it to actually see the recording in real time. And on the APC, I'll punch out. Cool. What key? What is that? Let's hear what happens when we go back to our hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, man. It's kind of awesome. What if I actually wanted to have an intro? Well, let's just take a blank scene, move that all the way up, insert it at the top, and do that. I just love this guitar part right here, so I'm going to put it by itself. Turn that metronome off. Maybe start the bass. Who knows? And now I'm going to play the whole scene 2. Here we go, man. It's kind of cool. Now we can do a little mix. I can go over to the master section, maybe apply some limiting, kind of balance these tracks out a little bit, add some more effects. Let's go back to this first track, right? And let's actually add some delay of Sinde. And what do we do now? I can hit global record. Go to the break. This might sound kind of cool. Delay. Right? Now we're going to go to that big change. Here we go. Bring that secondary guitar down. Check it out. I'm going to go to the tab key. Zoom out a little bit since we punched in way down here. What do we have? Pretty cool, man. And now I'll hit stop. 6 minutes later. Great job, man. Carlos Ayala. That really was, man. It's a special talent to be able to improvise on the fly like that. And how cool is it that Ableton can capture all those ideas? And we have those to work with now. We can mix and match and copy and duplicate, put delay and sounds and things like that, and then ultimately record that into the arrangement view, which is a lot of fun. So, any questions on the recording audio in real time? Because now I want to take a quick little break. Don't go far. And we're going to bring our good friend Joaquin. Then I'm going to come back around and show you some sound design, some more MIDI instrument device rack stuff, and then we'll close things out with Q&A. And we're going to give away some prizes. So, cool. Thanks, guys. We'll see you in a second.
Vamos a tomar unos 10 minutos. ¿Sí? Ahorita seguimos. Gracias.
Yeah, it's funny how everyone sticks around when there's a sweet 8 for raffle, right?
Hola. Ahora sí. Bueno, so I'm gonna borrow everything from Huston, the microphone, the chair. So I hope I can do it the same as him. So I'm gonna do the introduction in English, so because I want Huston to listen to this. I was talking to him about what I'm going to show right now. It's a trick. I told him I was going to show how to create a step sequencer. And he told me, are you going to use Max for Live? And I said, no. That's the trick. That's the trick. Because maybe you have seen step sequencers in Live. Most of them are developed in Max for Live. But here's a trick to do it with effects and instruments. Okay? So, I feel more comfortable speaking English, Spanish. So, voy a hacerlo en español. Todos conocen lo que es un step sequencer o secuenciador de paso. Ustedes, si cuentan, por ejemplo, los tiempos que tienen cuando están escuchando música, 1, 2, 3, 4, el compás. Un secuenciador de paso lo que hace es contar cada tiempo o fracción del tiempo que ustedes quieran, dependiendo de cómo lo configuran, y en cada tiempo o fracción, que le vamos a llamar un paso, va disparando un sonido. Y nosotros podemos escoger ese sonido y de esa manera podemos crear patrones musicales o de percusiones. ¿Sí? Ahorita lo que vamos a hacer es usar el secuenciador de paso, más bien crear el secuenciador de paso para hacer percusiones. ¿Sí? Y como les decía, lo más interesante de esto es que lo hacemos únicamente con las herramientas que nos da Ableton Live. ¿Sí? Primero les voy a mostrar las herramientas que vamos a usar porque son varias. Vamos a usar primero el drum rack. Ustedes lo conocen, lo mencionamos, bueno, lo mencionó Huston hace un ratito. Básicamente es una caja de ritmos, como la que conocemos. Vamos a seleccionar Kit 808. Ahorita lo está insertando. ¿Sí ven bien todos? ¿Sí? Este es el drum rack. Y contiene sampleos que puedo disparar cada uno directamente con mi ratón y mi controlador. ¿Sí? Bueno, no está configurado para esto. ¿Sí? Y en este me voy a basar para hacer mi secuenciador de paso. Cada celda de las que ustedes ven aquí puede contener un sonido, un sampleo o incluso otro instrumento. ¿Sí? Y nosotros lo vamos a ir disparando cada vez que presionemos ese botón de disparo o enviemos señales MIDI que pueden ser por medio de un clip que ya hemos grabado, como vimos hace un rato que podemos grabar. Esas son las percusiones. Hice una secuencia muy rápida, ¿sí? Pero ahora sí, para hacer el secuenciador de paso, voy a empezar con un drum rack vacío. Voy a borrar el que tengo aquí. Como vimos hace un rato, esto funciona únicamente en canales MIDI, que es donde podemos poner instrumentos, ¿sí? Voy a arrastrar un drum rack a mi canal. Es un drum rack vacío. Como ustedes pueden ver, así se ve cuando está vacío, ¿sí? Y como les decía, en cada una de estas celdas yo puedo poner un instrumento. ¿Qué instrumento voy a poner? Bueno, primero se los voy a mostrar en otro canal MIDI. Aquí tengo un canal MIDI vacío. Voy a usar este que se llama Impulse. Aquí hay unos presets ya hechos. Voy a usar uno que se llama Percussion One. ¿Sí? Ya está armado. Y tiene sonidos ya grabados. ¿Sí? Y estos son los que voy a usar para mi secuenciador de paso. ¿Sí? ¿Todo bien con este instrumento? ¿El Impulse? Sí, el Impulse es como una versión previa del drum rack. Primero salió el Impulse, después salió el drum rack, pero todavía se mantiene. Tiene algunas características que todavía son muy interesantes, a pesar de que el drum rack es mucho más, nos permite hacer cosas mucho más complejas en un solo canal. Bueno, entonces mi secuenciador de paso va a consistir en 8 pasos, ¿sí? Voy a poner un Impulse en 8 de mis casillas del drum rack. Esta, primera, segunda, tercera, cuarta, quinta, sexta, séptima y octava. ¿Sí? Voy a crear un clip que dispare estas celdas. Estas celdas, como vimos hace un momento, corresponden a notas, ¿sí? Y voy a crear un clip que dispare en secuencia cada una de estas notas. Ahorita vamos a ver cómo funciona cuando cree el clip. Noten que cuando voy al editor MIDI, aquí me dice el nombre de los instrumentos que tengo o del sonido que tengo en cada celda, ¿sí? Todos se llaman igual, ahorita les podemos cambiar el nombre, pero lo que yo quiero hacer es crear estas notas para que vaya disparando una tras otra en orden. ¿Sí? Si lo disparo, vamos a escuchar esto. La misma nota, ¿no? Porque están configurados todos igual. Pero lo interesante es ver cómo se disparan todos en secuencia. ¿Sí lo ven? Uno después de otro. ¿Sí? Aquí básicamente ya está funcionando el secuenciador de paso, pues nada más que todos los pasos tienen la misma nota. Sí, perdón, la misma percusión. Y a mí me gustaría encontrar una forma de poder cambiarla para poder alternar entre los sonidos que me da mi Impulse, que es el instrumento que en realidad estamos escuchando, para poder crear los patrones, pero sobre todo para hacerlo en vivo. Sí, que yo lo pueda cambiar en vivo. Entonces, voy a ir a las cadenas de mi drum rack. Ustedes ven las cadenas, que es la parte por donde fluye cada nota. Es, por ejemplo, si yo disparo la nota que corresponde a esta cadena, perdón, a este instrumento o a esta celda, pues corresponde a una de estas cadenas, y en cada cadena yo puedo darle un tratamiento diferente a mi instrumento, tratamiento de efectos, tratamiento de ruteo, lo que yo quiera, ¿sí? Y aquí es donde vamos a ver que dentro de cada celda está mi impulse, ¿sí? Dentro de cada celda tengo un impulse. Aquí vemos cómo está armado, ¿sí? Y vemos que siempre está disparando, al menos para siempre está disparando la misma nota, ¿sí? La misma percusión. Entonces, para hacer que cambie, pues yo tengo que cambiar la nota que le está llegando, porque la nota que está llegando al impulso es la que dice qué sonido se va a disparar. Entonces yo quisiera cambiar la nota. Para eso tengo efectos MIDI. Vamos a mi sección de efectos MIDI, ¿sí? Aquí tengo varios, pero el que me va a servir para esto es el pitch. Pitch lo que hace es tomar la nota y sacar una nota transpuesta, o el número de semitonos que yo le diga, ¿sí? Vamos a ver cómo funciona. Voy a poner el pitch en mi primera cadena, la del paso 1. Y si yo le digo que transponga, es decir, que cambie la nota de entrada, vamos a escuchar en ese paso un cambio, ¿sí? Ya encontramos cómo controlar el sonido que estamos escuchando, ¿sí? Ahora, ¿cómo lo puedo hacer más fácil para que yo lo pueda controlar en vivo? Bueno, primero tengo que organizarme aquí. Tengo que organizar cuáles son mis pasos. Te los voy a poner nombres. Paso 1, paso 2, paso 3, para que yo sepa lo que estoy haciendo, ¿sí? Paso 5, paso 6, paso 7, y paso 8, ¿sí? Voy a poner este efecto pitch en cada uno de mis pasos, ¿sí? Está para el paso 2, paso 3, paso 4, paso 5, paso 6, 7 y finalmente el 8. Ahora, quiero mostrarles una propiedad del impulse que está dentro de cada casilla, que únicamente... Ahora vamos a detener esto. Voy a volver a poner mi impulse en un canal vacío, porque les quiero mostrar una propiedad que tiene, que todos estos cuadros que corresponden a notas únicamente responden a las notas blancas, ¿sí? Así fue diseñado, por facilidad. Entonces, si yo empiezo a transponer por semitonos y me topo con una nota que resulta ser un sostenido, pues no va a llegar a ninguna nota, ¿sí? Por ejemplo, estoy presionando un Do, soy la primera nota, pero presiono el sostenido y no se oye nada, ¿sí? Si hay una nota, ustedes pueden ver aquí la entrada, quiere decir que estoy enviando algo, pero no produce ningún sonido. Entonces, para lidiar con esto, yo tengo que ir al secuenciador de paso que estoy creando y usar otro efecto que me evite hacer llegar notas sostenidos, ¿sí? Tenemos muchos efectos y sobre todo la combinación de ellos puede crear nuevos resultados. Para eso voy a usar un efecto que se llama Scale, ¿sí? Tiene algunos presets que me permiten trabajar en ciertas escalas. No tenemos que preocuparnos mucho por las escalas, pero yo sé que la escala C mayor únicamente corresponde a las notas blancas de un teclado, ¿sí? ¿Qué hace este efecto? Vamos a ponerlo. Voy a tomar el preset de C mayor. lo que hace es tomar notas de entrada. Ustedes se fijan, esto es como un teclado, ¿sí? Teclado musical, estas son las notas negras, estas son las blancas, ¿sí? ¿Sí se ve? Bueno, ustedes pueden ver las notas de entrada como si vinieran desde aquí, ¿sí? Desde abajo, de manera vertical. Y estos cuadritos naranjas nos van a ayudar a transformar las notas en la salida. La salida la vamos a ver aquí de manera horizontal, pero lo que me está diciendo es, por ejemplo, si yo envío un sostenido, no va a ser de salida, no voy a tener un sostenido, sino la nota que está, la que le corresponde en donde está el cuadrito naranja. ¿Sí? ¿Qué quiere decir? Que en este caso, si envío un sostenido, lo convierte en el do. ¿Sí? ¿Sí se ve? ¿Sí? Y lo mismo para las otras notas, pero ustedes pueden notar que siempre salen notas blancas. No nos vamos a preocupar mucho por eso, ¿sí? Lo importante es que funciona y nos convierte todas nuestras notas en notas blancas. ¿Sí estamos de acuerdo con eso? Muy bien. Entonces, ahora sí, cualquier valor que yo envíe lo va a convertir en nota blanca y siempre va a corresponder a un sonido. Por ejemplo, este es el do, este es el sostenido, pero se escucha la misma. ¿Sí? ¿Estamos de acuerdo ahí? Muy bien. Entonces voy a poner este efecto scale en todos mis pasos, en todas mis cadenas del drum rack. Este es uno de los efectos que siempre me preguntan en los cursos últimamente. Es así como que de la lista de los favoritos. Paso 8. ¿Sí? Entonces, voy a disparar otra vez mi clip, el que dispara todos los sonidos. Sí, escuchamos los mismos sonidos, pero si yo voy a cada paso y cambio el pitch, ¿sí? Voy a tener un diferente sonido. No me pasé. No puedo pasarme de 12, porque son 12 notas. ¿Sí? Ya voy creando el patrón. Sí, tal vez se escuche más emocionante. Si ponemos un loop, vamos a poner un loop de un kick. Voy a crear otro drum rack, pero voy a poner un 808. Sí, y simplemente voy a crear un nuevo clip que dispare un kick. Para que se oiga más emocionante, ¿no? Se oiga más emocionante si hacemos esto, ¿no? ¿Sí? ¿Se oye mejor? Bueno. Entonces, ahora vamos a subirle un poco el volumen aquí. ¿Pueden subir un poco el volumen ahí, Víctor? Gracias. Bueno, ya tenemos el secuenciador de paso. Ahora me falta cómo controlarlo, porque tendría que entrar a cada cadena, como hemos visto, ¿sí? E interactuar directamente con este efecto. Pero es muy complicado, no podría hacerlo en vivo, ¿no? ¿O qué les parece? ¿Sí se puede? ¿No? ¿Sí o no? No, ¿verdad? Bueno, pero para eso, todos los racks que tenemos en live tienen macros. Sí los han visto seguramente, ¿no? Sí. Bueno, entonces, aprovechando que mi secuenciador tiene 8 pasos, pues yo puedo usar estas 8 perillas para hacer que cambie la transposición de mi efecto pitch, que es el que está controlando qué percusión escucho en cada paso. ¿Sí? Bueno, ustedes seguramente conocen el modo de mapeo de un rack, que me permite mapear, o mejor, decirle a estas perillas que manipulen, las perillas que están al frente, es como si estuvieran afuera del rack, que manipulen parámetros de cualquier proceso, instrumento, efecto que tengamos ahí dentro. ¿Sí? Entonces yo quiero manipular mi pitch, ¿de acuerdo? Este es el pitch, vamos a ir en orden. Paso 1, voy a tomar el pitch Selecciono, para mapear hacemos esto. Selecciono el control que quiero manipular con los macros que están al frente. Sé que está seleccionado, y siempre me preguntan eso, porque tiene estos cuadritos, ¿sí? Si no tiene, perdón, esas esquinas. Si no tiene esas esquinas es que no está seleccionado. Selecciono el pitch y selecciono la macro que quiero que lo manipule, ¿sí? Vamos a ir al paso 2, selecciono el pitch. Del paso 2, selecciono map. Del macro 2, y voy a hacer lo mismo para cada paso. Este es el 4, el 5, el 6, 7, el 8 y listo. ¿Sí? Ya tengo aquí en estas perillas el control de la transposición de cada uno de mis pasos. Pero falta algo. Si ustedes notan, el límite superior o los valores que me puede dar cada perilla se pasa de los 12 que estoy usando, ¿sí? O más bien de los 8 que estoy usando. Live me permite especificar el rango de cada perilla, ¿sí? Entonces, noten que cuando estamos en el modo de mapeo, aquí arriba aparecen las configuraciones de los mapeos. Aquí puedo determinar qué valores mínimos y máximos va a tener cada perilla. Vamos a verlo de cerca. Ahí están los valores, ¿sí? Simplemente necesito poner que mis valores van a ser de 0. Uy, me pasé. A 12. ¿Sí? 12, ¿por qué? Porque son 12 notas en una octava. A todos los voy a poner 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Máximo 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12 y 12. ¿Sí? Y ahí está listo. Yo puedo salir de mi modo de mapeo, le doy clic aquí. Y mejor aún, me puedo olvidar de todos los dispositivos que están dentro. Los puedo cerrar las cadenas y únicamente usar las perillas para controlar la percusión que tenemos en cada paso, ¿sí? Y si yo lo tengo controlado, conectado a un controlador, con el controlador yo puedo especificar directamente qué hace cada paso. ¿Sí? Y así, sin Max for Live. Es una solución bastante buena para no tenerlo. ¿Qué les parece? ¿Sí? ¿Funciona? Y sobre todo es muy fácil usarlo en vivo, ¿no? Pues pueden hacer cualquier cosa. Pueden hacerla de más pasos si quieren, de menos, como ustedes quieran. Pueden ponerle grooves. Pero bueno, esta es la idea de hacer un secuenciador de paso de la manera más sencilla que existe. ¿Sí? ¿Les gustó? ¿Sí? ¿Alguna duda? Okay. So I'm gonna. So is Huston around? Sorry, I thought it was gonna take more time. It was quick. Thank you.
Before I get started and closing this out, why don't we do our first round? That'll give you time to get the mic on and snap you up. Any ideas of like someone special here tonight?
Someone to
It's not working with us.
like we say here, like a holy hand, someone who is pure. So, ¿quién nos quiere ayudar a seleccionar? ¿Tú?
2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Great. All right, so this is for
an Ableton Live shirt. Now, let's just say he does have a ticket, so if he draws his own ticket, we'll just say he gets it. So, but the odds of that's got to be pretty high, man.
Okay. Also,
922-393.
Who is it? Raise your hand. All the way in the back. You sure? Sweet, man. Cool, dude. All right. Now, before you get the shirt, you have to recreate the step sequencer. Right? What's your name, man? What's your name? Pardon? Hyman? Congratulations, man. Thanks for coming out, bro. You can just match that up with you. If you want to go up to Yukio in the back or whoever drew it, or yeah, right here, just to make sure the numbers are right. Cool, man. All right, welcome back, folks. So, what are we at? 10:30?
9:30.
9:30. Sorry. Let's dive right in. There are a couple of things I want to show you guys. I want to have some fun with some sound design to picture, which is always cool and fun to work with. But I also want to spend a minute and talk to you about one of my favorite features, which is called racks. Okay, and racks are really interesting. I know a lot of you guys know what they are because you're an Ableton user. Can somebody do me a favor? Just get me a little glass of, or just one of these. Someone anywhere. It's like super dry, man. That would be awesome. Or Joaquin, perfect. Or do you have a Max for Live patch that'll do that automatically? So anyway, thanks, Joaquin. That was cool, dude. So I'm going to go ahead and go to a new set. Let's get situated here. And I just want to talk about instrument racks. It's something that a lot of times, with a lot of clinics and workshops with live, it either goes by really quickly or sometimes it's not touched on. And to me, it's one of the most fascinating features in live. Drum racks is too, actually, that Joaquin was showing. But another instrument, another way that we can use live's instruments and audio effects inside Ableton is what's called instrument racks. And what's cool about this is, and I'll touch on audio effects racks as well, is that inside Ableton, under the instruments, in this case we're using Suite 8, I've got electric pianos and FM synthesizers and studio quality drum kits, a lot of 50-plus gigs of stuff, of instruments that are built in to Suite 8. But another nice bonus is that Ableton Live actually gives you a menu and a selection of presets that are already set up as racks. So let's discuss what racks are. Some of you already know what they are, so just follow along here. And what racks are, we'll back up for just a second. I'm going to take an electric piano, just real basic, drag it into a MIDI track. Right? There it is in all its glory. That's one of our physical modeling instruments, a partnership with AAS Technology there, our company, and we've created simply called Electric. So it doesn't get any more basic than that. Well, I've got an electric piano, and I can do a couple things like we did earlier. I can go to the audio effects, and I could, put a chorus on there, or, an auto filter, like we did the auto pan earlier. So I drag that right into the device view down at the bottom, and I could go ahead and change some of these parameters I wanted to. As a matter of fact, I could do it with the APC 40 if I wanted to, but I could also go in and I can use what's called the hot swap. Thanks, man. The hot swap feature. The hot swap feature does exactly what the name implies. It actually helps me swap presets really quickly. So inspiration, strikes. I click the little hot swap button right here. It's these little omnidirectional arrow inside the circle. So I click that. I highlight. When I do that, it automatically opens up the preset menu in this particular device, which is the auto pan. So I click it, highlight it, hit return or enter. What's kind of cool, it's a hard panner, so it's kind of got that ducking. Click on 90 degrees. A little different chopper. That's kind of cool, kind of old school tremolo kind of thing going on. So I like that one. But, okay, that's one way that we can start developing sort of an affected sound and creating a row of our device, a row of devices, an audio device, right after a MIDI instrument. Well, what I want to do is take it a step further, and I want to create what's called an instrument rack. And we do that really easily. I could hit the macro very quickly, but I actually want to show you the the long way, and I just right-click on the title bar of the instrument, and I go to what's called group, or I hit Command G or Option G, and I click that, and over to the left, very quickly, did you guys see that? As soon as I hit Option G, I'll undo it. Let me do it one more time. When I hit group, it brings up the macro and the instrument rack, macro, device chain, and the device view. And these buttons allow me to go in now and actually see some macros. Those are what Joaquin was working with. And I also have the chain view, and it shows that I have one chain row, if you will, of one electric piano, and in that chain row is the device. Okay, it's kind of boring stuff, right? It's like, okay, we get that, we see it. Well, what's really interesting is now I can go back to the instrument device browser and say, well, let's go in and take something like, as a matter of fact, let's go to operator, and we'll go to mallets, and we'll take bell chimers. That's a preset, and I'm going to drag that into the chain view right underneath the first device chain, and now I'm going to build my rack. So now I have two, just like a studio rack, like you would in your studio with a reverb, delay, compressor. So now, it's a little high pitch. So let's hot swap that now. That's the reason I just pulled it in. I'll actually go to operator, over to the hot swap on it, and while I'm playing, it's that little pitch kind of high sine wave. It's not even a sine wave, it's like brutal, like weird FM kind of thing going on. So I'm going to go ahead and hot swap that, find something. So now I've got a little stack going. And what's nice is within the chain view, I have individual volume, panning. So I could increase the volume. I'm going to go ahead and close down the envelope just a little bit. Turn the volume up. There we go. And I'm going to pan them hard left, hard right, just for, Can you guys hear it's not even there now. So I go back, turn on that. There we go. So I'm just creating this layer, and then I can go a step further. Could do one more thing. I'm going to bring in a synth bass, maybe similar to the one I played earlier. So I go synth bass. I'm going to take bass analogics, and I'm going to drag that. This is an instrument called Analog, okay, which is another instrument by partnership with AAS, which is just synthesized analog waveforms. It gives me this synth at the bottom, or bottom end, but there's a problem there. What's going on? We obviously are layered, which is kind of what we want to do, but I don't want it on the whole key. I'd like to maybe split things up. Well, all within one device rack. Again, this is all contained within one simple device rack. I can go in now and do things like do key zones. So I hit key zone, and now we see the key spanning zone of all the different layers. So I'm going to go and take my bracket tool, and I'm going to go to electric piano and put electric piano right above from C2 all the way up. Take my little 80s FM bells there. I'm going to pull that down just a little bit. But that bass is still there, so I do something very simple. Now I take the right side, right, and have the key zone down low, so now I can do a nice little split. So now I've split that out. Now we can go back, and I still, that sound is I'm not really feeling the bell sound. So I'll just click one time on the device view. I'm going to go ahead and hide the velocity scaling there. And now I see the FM bell go to hot swap one more time. And maybe find something just a little bit different. Mallets may not be what I was trying to find was like some, chromatic. Here we go, something like this. Breath mallet will be cool. Perfect, that's what I wanted. So now I've got this cool little split, right? And now I can just simply go to the APC40 or directly into live session view and just have fun and do what we did earlier. I've got my metronome. Maybe I want to tap out a tempo. So I turn a metronome on. I do that every time. I can do it from the APC40 too. Cool. So I got the metronome playing. I could punch myself in, or I could just stop and I could just launch myself.
I'm actually in real time. I just want to take this last half. So I bring my loop brace up. So I kind of like that groove. It's kind of cool. Now I can go back over to instrument racks. I want to show you how we can call, instead of building one, Ableton actually gives you ones to choose from. So I'm going to go to instrument rack, go down to synth pad, and maybe choose something like Maxellini Light. Bring that in. And now what this is, and there it is, I open up the chain view, and it's actually a whole stack. So I can layer those in. Pretty cool. What's on the bottom end? It's a big pad. So it gives you these really Instruments gives you a lot of choices as presets. So it's got a little hidden arpeggiator in there. And if I go over and I actually look in my macros here, I can actually see that I've got a way to control the arpeggiator. I can control the low pass filter. And I can also do that with my macro knobs from the APC 40. Can you guys see that? So I can't really play in. Someone hold the APC? No, I'm just kidding. Right, so it gives me just a lot of flexibility as instrument rack. So I can build my own, just like I did here. If I want to save it, we'll call this SAE Night Demo, or just SAE Rack EL Piano. And that's going to go right up in my instrument racks, right up there. So if I want to come back in later, there it is. Watch what happens. I'll just pull it right in. Maybe I'm doing a session later. Tony and I are doing something, and he's like, hey, what was that cool, like, split kind of little Rhodes thing you were? There it is. So I just saved it, put it in the browser for later, or I can actually go to my instrument racks, which are a lot of fun, and call up all kinds of stuff. And there's some amazing presets that have been done by some of the top sound designers in the business for Live 8. So, and for a lot of you that already own Suite 8, you already know this by working with these. One other thing to mention is audio effects have the same thing inside their category. Not only do we have the individual effects from amps to auto filters, flangers, delays, we also have audio effect racks. So check it out. Bring this in, and I can actually put that on the master. So there it is. So look at all the different effects that are in that. Look at these all chained together. So they're all presets. Another very cool thing is in an audio effect rack, we have categories, which is really important to remember as you're working in production. So Ableton gives you choices of mastering, for example. How many times do we wish we had a way to just quickly get to smooth out that mid-range, give ourselves some bottom, kind of maximize the track? Well, Ableton can do that. So I can bring a mastering rack 1, load it in there, and it's already given me the capability to bring in multi-band dynamics, 64-bit, 8-band EQ, and all those are visible just by hitting this device rack right there. So you can see all the flexibility there. There it is with it, without it, with it. There's the compressor. So it's really cool. So you've got instrument racks, audio effect racks, and multiple ways to use those. Let's look at the instrument rack on one more item before we get into some sound design. We'll call it this, get out of our jazzy mode, get into something a little bit nastier, right? So if I look over here, close the browser up, I've got 3 or 4 scenes going on. We're using a feature called grouping on my drums. That's where I take several drum tracks, multi-highlight them, and I just hit Command-G, and I can actually group those together so I can tuck them away. So a lot of you are familiar with grouping there. Scroll down, play another track, and let's look on the master track. What's cool is I have a custom rack that I made that's got all kinds of things in here. I've got a clipper, a little stutter machine, I got a high-pass filter. All right, so let's go over here, select the master track. There we go. another cool delay, another cool audio effect device. I'm going to take this one out. Let me change the track a little bit. Cool. Whoop. We can launch Firefox. It's always fun. All right. So let me go back to audio effects racks. I'm going to close this, open up one more time. And I want to go down to something called performance and DJ, right? And in performance and DJ, there's a single preset that's in this category that's actually probably one of the most popular and used and very cool effects ever made across the globe. I know that's a really long explanation for what I'm going to show you, but check this out. It's called Fade to Gray. So I'm going to put Fade to Gray on the master section, and you get really cool things like this. Let's get the groove going. Right? So we can do things like this. Let's find our one. There we go. Give it a little twist. Right? Or slow. So it opens up the filter, takes that delay, puts it on endless feedback. It's very cool when you're working with a remix. So I can't help but show that effect. So I'm going to go to New Set, just one time, show one last thing. So go to, I got some DJ files here, kind of some of the stuff I was showing earlier, and we will open a couple tracks. There we go. I'm just going to put some random ones in. Number 1, number 2. Make sure our crossfader's on. We got that going. Let's go ahead and assign while these are loading up. Input A on track 1, input B, just like a traditional. How many of you guys are using the Q feature in live as DJs? Any DJs out here? Cool. So what's cool about the Q feature, and some of you may not even be aware of the functionality, a lot of the functionality here. If I open up the I/O section, the Q feature lets me take separate tracks, and I can solo and create these solos on each track as a floating queue, just like I would on a traditional DJ mixer. And that's right over here on the right side. And all that's required is that you have Ableton Live, obviously, but you also have a multiple output interface. So you have more than 2 outputs. You can kind of hotwire it with a stereo plug if you wanted to and kind of split a mono cable or whatever. But you go to Q out, you leave master on 1, 2, and you go Q out. Put that on anything other than 1 or 2. In this case, since I don't have multiple outs, we're going to just kind of pretend we have that. And you'll see that as soon as that happens, this solo button down here, once I click it, it turns into a cue, and now all my cues, can you see that? They turn into little headphones. And I can also MIDI map those too, so I can have them just float momentarily. So it's a cool way, if you're working in a club, to have your sub or your headphones or whatever, and not even have a DJ mixer, which is kind of amazing. So, but anyway, that's called Q out. So we'll put this back where that is. I just wanted to mention that. And we're going to fire off these 2 tracks. Knock this up a little bit quicker. Double check, make sure we've got ourselves on the 1 here. Cool. So we can take something like Fade to Gray. We can put that on the master track. Just flip that over. Same thing again. Separate track. So I'm just using one audio effect device. The awesomeness actually of the crossfader in live and on the APC40 just to create a really interesting mix. So, and you can spread that all the way across. You could have 8 different tracks going with 8 different clips of 8, mashup mixes or whatever that you've got going. So, so anyway, again, just wanted to point out how cool this folder is. And sometimes that slips right by people. They don't even, our live users, they don't even know it's there sometimes. They just think, oh, I've got my auto filters and all my effects. Well, audio effects is there with hundreds and thousands of different presets. So very, very cool stuff. So any questions before we move into sound design and close it out? Yeah.
I'm not sure if I saw correctly, but I think I saw
Yeah, well, okay. So, an explanation of actually the components of fade to gray? Is that what you're wondering?
No. For example, if I would want to use fade to gray, and then on the rest of the macros map some of the other presets that are in.
Sure, absolutely. That's a great question, man. So we'll open up ping pong delay just to kind of show it here. I'll actually open up EQ3. So I can go to macro 2. There's a couple of really shortcut ways to do it. I can just hold down my right click, map 2, and now I've got that knob. So I've got, and what's really interesting is that I can multi-map too. So I could go to the feedback and also map that to macro knob 2 as well. So now I can get two things going at once. Okay. That's really cool, right? And the other thing that's really interesting, as soon as I hit map mode, and Joaquin touched on this a little bit, there's a really neat feature that lets me, especially for a lot of you DJs out there that work with filters and dropping out, a low pass and things like that. You can actually click just to the right of your mapping input, and it's called invert range. And once you click that, it actually reverses the rotation of the knob direction. So you can do things opposite. So it's really, really cool. So I can reverse the direction of just the EQ3 gain knob. So now when I turn it, it goes the opposite way, which is pretty cool. So pretty neat. So yeah, you can map up. You can go to 128 parameters on a single knob times the 8 knobs. Then you can basically nest racks inside racks, which is a whole nother mind explosion thing. So, and there's guys that have done it. I've seen presets that are like 50 deep. They just goes off into oblivion. I programmed some racks for our amp and cabinet preset, our library, that were 3 or 4 racks within a rack just to achieve a certain sound. So it can get as deep as you want or as simple as you want. Or you can keep things really simple and just go to the instrument or audio effect device browser and just get a preset. So, cool. Question? You guys ready to turn it up and do a little bit of sound design and then do a little raffle for some Sweet 8? Cool. All right. So how many sound designers and sound design students and music for film enthusiasts do we have out here? We got like half a hand. It's like he was like, oh, I'm almost there, but I'm not quite there, man. Well, hopefully some of the stuff I'm going to show you is going to invigorate you to want to dig in a little more. Hopefully, I have a lot of fun with this stuff. I discovered what's called the QuickTime feature in Live 8, and it was like 2007. It came out in version 6, kind of snuck in there on that release. And I've been doing a lot of film composing and early stages of sound design. I started as a film composer, then I got more into sound design, and now I do both. But I was using Logic for most of that stuff, and then I would actually get done and put all those stems, upload it to Pro Tools, send it to the post house, and then they would deal with it and all that stuff. And it was fairly painstaking, and there was always a process, and I always knew pretty much how many hours I would take to do all this kind of stuff. Then the QuickTime feature, as it's called, came out for Live, which basically it works inside the arrangement view, okay, and it just works in that linear format, but it gives you this unlimited, elastic timeline to work with. So no matter where I put my cursor, I can just be anywhere at any time and scrub the video just elastically and just move things and drop things around. So, and I could never do that before. Everything was always just linear to a grid, menus to import QuickTime hits and things like that. So let's take a look. So let's call up, there we go. So here it is. Sort of in kind of a medium. For you sound designers out there, maybe this is kind of a medium involved set, maybe a little over 100 pieces. And what this trailer is, it's just a basic, simple trailer. I don't upload it, I don't sell it, I don't claim it to be mine. What this is just a trailer that was public domain. It came out about a year before Tron came out. And see how I move my cursor, my insert marker? I can just kind of scrub back and forth. And so what I've done for this particular demo, I wanted something really animated to work with. The audio, when you drag a QuickTime from your desktop or from your browser into the timeline, just like that, you bring it into track 1, take it all the way to 0, or wherever you want to put it, it opens up what's called the QuickTime viewer, the viewer window, immediately. And I can just drop it in the timeline at that point. And then, if I double click it, you can see the audio in the track. So a lot of you that have QuickTime on your laptop and in your iTunes and stuff, you'll put it in. If you push play, you're going to hear audio, whatever's on that track. Well, you just simply mute the audio because you don't need it anymore. Or you can just turn down the coarse volume as well. So that's all that I need to do on the video. I have it in there. And then the next idea is to go to my browser and go through my sound library of just different sounds. So if I go to File Browser 1 and I go up top to my live library, I go to Current Project, I can actually see Alright, so I'm just scrolling through different effects. There's a little taxiing airliner. Right, so all kinds of just random stuff. Some stuff I've tweaked and mutated. Now, something I want to point out before we even start this. A lot of you, as this goes along, a lot of times after these demos of the QuickTime, a lot of cats are like, hey man, where can I get sounds like that? What's going on with that? Where do those exist? These days, it's a great time to get sounds, and you can get free sounds at companies like Loopmasters, Hollywood Edge. You can go to Sounds to Sample is another one. All these are on their websites, and you can go and get these different categories. You go to sound effects, and there's libraries in there from 15 megabytes all the way up to 50, 60 megabytes that are free. They're little starter packs. So just go annihilate the web and find these and just download them and just put them in your browser. So let's find a big hit here. There we go. Now watch what happens. This is where the coolness starts to get involved. I'm playing it in the browser just like we did with some of those drum loops and guitar loops earlier. I'm going to drag it. As soon as it gets in the timeline, it starts to sync up to the video. Right? And let's put it right where his helmet smashes back against the wall. Right there. Boom. Okay? So, and that's just kind of rough. I haven't even got in there and shifted it or moved it around. Let's play it back now. I'm going to solo that track. There you go. So, I've spotted it in there, right? But if I double click it, this is where things start to get really fun. I can actually transpose it, right? I can warp it. This is where things get really interesting because you're not just stuck with that original sound now. Not only do you have that elastic timeline, which you're getting ready to see in a second, makes things really cool to start flying around, it also lets me manipulate it with our warp markers that we worked with earlier on some of those drum tracks. Right? So we can stretch things around. So let me get that one out of there, and let's just start this. On this track 2, just to make sure you guys are aware of what's going on, I have my temp music score. So I use some of the Ableton instruments, some Contact 3 string orchestra stuff, some brass. Okay, that's just soloed out. And now you start to hear some violins and some strings here. So that's the music, and I've blended that for all you engineering students and composition students here at SAE. I've just made a comp of that into one stereo track because I'm not doing any more music. I'm doing sound design. So I've put my stereo 2 track right on track 2. I got the video on track 1, and now it's time to work with all this sound design. So let's just play it, and when we get to certain points, I'm going to show you guys particular things and kind of break it down for you. So you can also double-click on the QuickTime viewer to go to full screen, which is kind of fun. Is there a way to kill these upper lights? Yeah, man. Awesome. Thanks, bro. So the first thing I want to take a look at, the breath, the breathing. Ableton can take those breaths, since it's rhythmic, and we can actually adjust that and time that out. So if he's running, or if he's crouching down, if it's like a gaming video or something, check it out. We'll solo the track. Right? Double click it. I got those warp markers right there. Where there's a moment where he turns around. So maybe there's a little anxiety right there. So let's actually speed up some of the breaths there. So we talked about this earlier. I double click it. I make a warp marker. So I'm going to speed things up here. Just kind of introduce some chaos here, just for a quick moment when he turns his head there. Let's just see what happens. We'll put this guy kind of back where he was. There we go. Play it back. All right, so just a quick little breath. So we can do that with footsteps, with Foley stuff. So now let's hear everything together. So you can see a lot of other pieces are down here. little more volume, just a bit. Right, so there's a cool segment. So maybe right there what I'm trying to do is just come up with some acceleration ideas, some ways to get some, get some tension going there. So I can zoom in on this particular part, right? I can grab parts from the browser. I can also simply select a section, go Command-L, and now I can just loop that section so I can just start getting creative like I was working with MIDI. Right. So let's break it down. One track. Another track. Another track. Here's another track. And a last track. Right? We take the loop off. So we got some big booms coming in there. Like right when he drops that motorcycle off the landing pad there. Right? That's just a simple 808 boom. I could tune that down a little bit if I'm working for, a different vibe, like I want something deeper. It's kind of crazy. But frequency-wise, when you blend other things in, and all you engineering students know this, and mixers, you've got to work with those frequencies. So let's back it up and let's hear how that boom comes in around all this other chaos. All right, so we got some glass crashes right there. So we can work with, there's two of them. So what happens when we put one on top of the other? We can zoom in. Right, different frequencies, because different velocity, different airspeed. Here's another cool thing. Let's put one, not that this would actually happen practically in the real world, but let's do this. Let's work with what's called clip envelopes in the clip view. And now simply we'll put one of the clips with our pencil tool, and we'll actually have that change panning areas there, and we'll do the same thing over here, right? So we'll go pan, and we'll do the opposite. So let's see what happens. See if that moves around for you guys. I can't really. Did that move? Did it not? I'm not sure if we're even in stereo in here. So, but you get the idea. We'll just pretend we're in stereo. So here we go. One of the last little breakdowns I'll show you is right there. So obviously a point, all these tracks working just for this power down of this light cycle. So we've got component 1, component 2, we got components on the street. It's kind of interesting, right? So there's an actual motorcycle that we used. And then I went in and I actually put an auto filter on a track. Or did I? Oh, here it is. Right, so that lower end comes in underneath to give that sort of that spacey vibe, that ethereal. And maybe we're inspired here. We go back to our browser, right? So we can loop that section with that big smashing curve. Move the loop brace back a little bit. So let's take the alien flyby, drag that right in. Turn up the chorus volume. Since we have a swell up, let's do this. Let's make that thing end right at the impact of that kick drum drop. Okay? So we back up a little bit. See how elastic it is? I just move it. Isn't that cool? So we know that we want it to end right there. So why not do this? Have it swell up. If I take the bracket tool Ableton's smart enough to realize to actually scrub with a bracket tool. So I want it to end like, I want it to go like this. So I'll back it up, boom, right there. So now let's play it back. Warp it, pitch it up a little bit to get a little bit more of an animated sound. There you go. So it's got that suction sound. It gets turn the looping off again. So we'll close the browser. And so on the glass alone, a lot of glass happening right there. We got pieces and shards flying around. We got the scraping of this little rubber suit on the ground. Here's another component. Here's the rubbing thing. That's just me with a microphone and a popper stopper. Just going like that to give that sort of effect. And then we have just little things up top like the rub slide. Right? And then all together. So if you ever want to shift anything like this impact, right when he hits, right there, Ableton will do that. And it's very difficult to find a program that'll get that tight as far as elastic timeline maneuvering with those kinds of audio hits. And this works with, the audio can be anything. It can be iTunes, it can be MP3s. The video needs to be .mov. So it does work. It's jitter. It's actually a derivative of Max MSP, the company that works with us for Max for Live. So as long as you have a video, make sure it's converted to .mov, drag it right into the timeline, get some sound effects, get some of your music. The other thing that I really stress that I think is really interesting about working with QuickTime is it's a really engaging way to get more involved with understanding clip properties and the parameters that are in those clips. So I think it's a blast. I love working with it, and it's definitely a lot of fun. So definitely check it out. One last thing I want to show you guys. There's two things that can really help you, especially when you're new to live, and also as a seasoned user like some of you are. There's a feature at the very top called Help. It's called Help View, and when you click it, it's not a PDF manual, it's not a website or anything like that. Check this out. I hit Help, and over to the right, I've got different categories that takes me through and actually shows me, things that I may want to look at and review. So I can say, well, let's think about recording. So I got 14 pages of recording features. I can also, make this page larger. And I can also actually launch clips and sets and lessons from within this, like right here. I can launch this driver error compensation. So it's really cool, and it works alongside your live set. So remember that the help view's there. It's there to work with you. It's like having an assistant with you, all the time. And I just close it with that. And then over here on the left side, which I use all the time, even when I'm doing video tutorials, if I forget the way a particular feature is supposed to be named, it's called the info view. So a lot of times people aren't even aware that you've got this little triangle button right here, and when I click it, it opens up the info view. And watch what happens to the info view as I move my cursor over the transpose. It tells me a detailed description of that particular parameter and that feature. I move it over some of the warping modes. It tells me the different warp modes, the different properties, the different features and qualities that are in there. I move it over to the clip. Tells me the difference between the start mode, the loop position. So info view, you can leave that open too. It's totally interactive. And it's on every version of Live, Intro, Live 8, Suite 8. And it's on the demo as well. So don't forget, if you don't have Live, go home tonight, download it off the website, and just get started with Live. And that's going to do it. So I want to thank you guys very much for coming out to SAE. Thank you very much. And I also want to thank SAE. I want to thank Pro Audio. I want to thank Joaquin and everyone that helped us get this whole thing going. Tony Lamont for your help on everything. And so stick around. Oh, you think we got... Is there something else we're supposed to do?
No.
Yeah, we're done. So good night, everybody. No, we're going to give away this copy of Suite 8. Yeah, we got some questions, too. So Ableton, on this current version, does not work with surround sound at this point. You can do simulated surround with a multiple output interface because in the preferences... Let's say I have an output. Let's say I have a Motu interface. It's got 16 outputs or something crazy. I go to my output configuration in the preferences under audio, and as soon as I hook that up, USB or FireWire, it's going to show all those outputs. So I can select those. So I can do discrete output and then run that into a surround sound program on a specific platform. But Ableton does not host or work with surround sound at the moment. So that could be something in the not so distant future. So, yeah. Any other questions from you guys? Yeah.
Do you know when we can expect Ableton 9 and maybe some features to it?
Ableton 9 comes after 8, so that makes a lot of sense, right? But it has been a while, and I will tell you that the Berlin team, the development team, and specification, everyone is very hard at work. You would not believe the man hours that we're putting into the upcoming version of Live. As far as details, I absolutely have to stay, I can't say anything about that. You never know what kind of, somebody's out there with a flip camera. But seriously, I can't go into any details, but I will say that there's some incredibly exciting things on the horizon with Live. I can assure you and I can promise you that. And hopefully we haven't let anybody down yet on any previous version. So timeline, it could be, who knows? It could be... Who knows? Yeah. I always get this question, though, and to be fair and to be honest, there's just not a lot of details I can talk about at this point. Ableton's always really good at beginning to get information out there as development gets closer to, like, beta releases and things like that. So if you're already working with Ableton and you are curious about the next version, definitely keep an eye on the website, keep an eye on our forum. By the way, speaking of website, if you go to youtube.com/Ableton Inc., INC, we have tutorials on there. We have the Getting Started series that I've done that's got 8 to 10 videos. We also have the Ableton Live Clinic, and these are step-by-step tutorials that answer everything from the basics of connecting your interface with Live all the way to warping acapellas, creating drum racks, all kinds of stuff. So I have a ton on there. We have other Ableton users that have step-by-step tutorials. So don't forget about those. But cool. You had a question, I think, right here? Yeah. What's that? Oh, Max for Live. Was that the question?
Max for...
Yes, we just had a release. We have 8.2.5. It's prominently placed right there on our website. If you're a current user, you can download it. We have the specifications that talk about the integration with the Lion release of OS X. So it's brand new. It's working good, stable. So hopefully good news from here on out. So yeah, great question about the latest Mac OS X version. So yeah, we just got that out not too long ago. So yes.
Are there apps for iPad?
Yes, there's apps for iPad. There's for controlling iPad. There's no specific Ableton program that works on the iPad platform or the iOS platform. But there's some great programs. There's one called Touchable. Anybody use Touchable? There's a program called Touchable. Those guys do a really good job for setting up the interface to control Live wirelessly, obviously, with the iPad. So you can control faders, you control your scene launches. There's also a Grid from Line. That's a fantastic program. So just go to the App Store, check these out, download them, get your user ID set up, works on your IP address, and you're off to the races. It's pretty fascinating. How many are you using an iOS application with Ableton currently? A couple. Yeah. So definitely check those out. Those are the two off the top of my head. Is Yukio, is there any other one that I'm forgetting? It's pretty much it. Yeah, TouchOSC, which is sort of an integrated platform that actually works under the hood for a lot of these iOS apps. So, yeah, Grid and Touchable, they're pretty fun. Pretty addictive, actually. So, yeah, good question. Awesome. Any more? We giving away a copy of Suite 8? Sweet. No, I didn't mean to say that. But I actually say that because I'm a hippie. So, everybody has their ticket? Excellent.
The guys back there.
Nice.
Carlos,
Sound guys are like,
yes. Carlos wants his.
okay, so we'll make this quick, and that way we can get everybody rolling. So who's got the magic jar? Oh, it's up there. All right. Do we want to have a volunteer to choose a? Man, you guys are shy.
¿Quién quiere
We just get
seleccionar
somebody
el
on.
botón?
Don't make us point. Who we got? Who wants to draw a ticket? All right, let's get this gentleman right here in the front row because he asked a good question about the iOS apps. Go ahead and stand up. Let's get the microphone. Let's make this official because we are giving away, this is an $800 value, ladies and gentlemen. It's not this particular box, okay? This is going to be getting your information, your email, and we're going to send you a license. We're going to set up your user account and all that stuff. We'll explain it to you when you come up afterwards when we match the ticket. So, because this is a hard copy that's part of the dealer, so. But it's quick. It's a download. So, all right. We ready? Mike. Nice. Like how you're turning away, being fair. Drum roll.
92241.
Who is it? Come on, man.
¿Pueden encender las luces?
Sometimes people leave, too.
Las luces, por favor.
Somebody's driving home. Their ears are burning. They're like,
922-414.
really? You got it?
922-414.
All right, man. Our winner of Sweet. So, Joaquin, why don't you get his name and just, what's your name? Edgar. Congratulations, man. So, everybody, thank you very much. If you have any questions about SAE itself, if you're interested in getting into school, Joaquin's here to answer questions. Have a great time. We'll see you guys soon. Check out the website, ableton.com. Check out some of the videos. Good night.
Bueno, quiero agradecerle a Houston. Thank you, Houston, for being here.
Yep, thanks.
A Pro Audio, Ableton and SAE. Los que están interesados en la clase de Ableton Live, aquí se da. Y el próximo curso va a ser el 24